complete 20-footer. Yes. For the tie. For her turnaround shot in the air. It's good. Flash. What? Finds the ball. Barkley puts it up. Does it count? It does. Jake O'Donnell said it counted. O'Donnell said it's good. Oh my goodness.
Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Solar Panel. Whether you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, again, rabbit ears in the West Valley, however you're getting us here live on the show, we appreciate you, the Flaming Ballers, more than you know. I am your host, Greg Esposito, ahoy, hoy, and joining me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, the Silver Fox, and we promise that hair is still beautiful and silver under that hat. It is Dave King. Dave, how are you?
You're just going to look at my beard. That's exactly what the rest of it looks like.
I'm not even going to go there. And and we have the Carmel Thunder from down under. It is Saul Bookman. Saul, how are you, sir?
Good morning, ladies.
Only ladies in the
only
chat.
to the ladies.
To the one lady that listens to the show.
Oh,
That's it. That's it. My fiance. That is all.
Lady.
Digging the hat there, Saul.
Thank you.
Sharp
Thank you.
looking hat. And
just sports. There you go. Sponsor us. How about that?
We don't even have a deal with them, and we're just dropping names. And speaking of dropping names, it's time to drop one from ESPN. It is our friend Bobby Marks is joining us on the program. Bobby, how are you, man? Last time we saw you, you were saying Suns in 9. I am still waiting for those last 3 games of the series.
Hey, I'm still staying with Suns in 5 because I know that game. What was that, game 4? Could have gone either way. So, yeah, it was a good series, though. I mean, it was.
Giannis just made that incredible play.
It could have, it could have went either way. I mean, it really could have. And as you guys know, Giannis was out of his mind in game 6, and none of us thought he'd make 17 and 19 from the free throw line. And now we are in the off season.
Well, we still have PTSD from that, Bobby. Thanks. If he'd have just made his normal amount of free throws.
Look, very much like when I was on the dating scene, I'm just going to stuff it down deep and move on as fast as I can.
Whoa,
right?
What?
As in when I break up with somebody, I'm going to stuff the feelings down deep and I'm going to move on to the next person.
Can't even believe.
You guys,
oh my
Bobby,
goodness.
I apologize for these two
It's too
gentlemen.
early for this nonsense
Bobby,
right now.
I apologize for these two gentlemen.
Espo, give it
talking
to him.
emotional feelings, stuffing them down deep and moving on to the next thing.
Thank you for
let's talk about what occurred on draft night, Bobby. The Suns had the 29th pick. They decided to ship that out with Javon Carter to land Landry Shamet. What are your thoughts on the move, and where do you kind of grade what James Jones did there?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost similar to what Brooklyn did the year before when they moved out of I think they were at 19, and they traded that. It was part of a 3-team deal with Detroit and the Clippers, and they got Landry Shamet in that deal. 19 went to the Pistons, and Pistons wound up taking Sadiq Bey in that trade, which actually turned out to be a nice player. But I think based on where Phoenix's timeline is like, how do we parlay the 28th pick, which turned into I think it was the 29th pick, which has turned into Daron Sharp, who's, will probably be a rotational player down the road. I mean, you were looking at like an 18-year-old Jaden Springer. Like, how can that player help you?
Right.
So you're looking at the timeline of your roster, certainly with Chris back likely, and with Ayton, Bridges, the group there, to kind of get a guy who you can have, much needed bench support. Because your options in free agency are going to be somewhat limited, certainly if you bring back Campaign. So you get a scorer off your bench. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it, on a cheap 1-year contract, and you have to figure out as far another guy that's extension eligible with the other two. But I'm all for it. I'm fine. I mean, this roster, you have enough young players on your roster. It's not like it's an old team, and it would have been probably a learning curve of 2 years if you went that route, and you're in kind of a little bit of a win now mode.
So it's a little bit interesting that you're right. The Suns are a young team. They were one of the youngest teams to make, the Final Four basically this year and most years. because they have so many guys who are 25 or under, just about everybody except for Jay Crowder and Chris Paul. So that's great. But having said that, Landry Shamet is still about the age of a couple of the guys they could have drafted if they wanted to go old in the draft. I'm trying to think of the one guy in particular who's older. Duarte might be older than Landry Shamet right now. And Landry Shamet is just turned 24. He's still like the third youngest guy on the team. And they're not an old team. So that's quite interesting. Landry, I think he obviously, as you said, he fits the timeline. He's better as a shooter and all that. So that's a good pickup for the Suns. But what do you think about, Bobby, considering the Suns, that it's also come out that the Suns have basically filled their summer league team with Euro players who are in their mid to late 20s, and the only actual team-oriented guys on the team, would be Jalen Smith. And then Tyshawn Alexander is coming back from his two-way. He's still going to play at least in summer league for the Suns. What do you think about the tactic of, you really think the Suns are doing fine enough that they don't even need to look for young prospects anymore at all, even in summer league? What do you think about that tactic?
Well, I mean, I think usually what happens too is usually cherry pick guys off other teams. I mean, that's at the reality of it. If you're going to sign guys to two ways, you're just kind of pulling. You're not just evaluating your roster. You're evaluating the other 30 teams who are in Vegas or Salt Lake or Sacramento. So like I've seen situations where like a guy goes off in 2 games and then like another team signs them to like a two-way. So I think there's it's not kind of territorial as far as just because you are, the guys you have on your roster, those are the only ones you are going to be pulling from. If it's your 14th roster spot or your 15th roster spot, or if it's if you have an open two-way there, exhibit 10s, which is another extension that kind of goes to your G League team. So I'm fine with the summer league process. I mean, I've been part of summer league rosters that we've put together that have like gone over and have actually turned out better. Some of those players have turned out better than what we saw on the court. And I've seen some rosters that have been really good here. So it's an interesting tactic. I've not really seen something like that before, where it's basically kind of like a Europeanish type, as far as guys that are on that roster here. But yeah, it doesn't bother me just because I think you're the pool of players that you can kind of just select from is so big right now.
Sure.
What about, I talk me off the ledge here. Yeah. I feel like the Suns need one more player. I feel like they need that just one guy at least that can create his own shot. Am I wrong in that thinking, or is there somebody out there that they could afford to be able to do that?
No, I don't think you're wrong in your thinking. I mean, I think when you look at the roster, there is probably a hole there. Certainly from a bench standpoint, I know Shamit fits a little bit of that just because he can get his shot off. I just think it's going to be a matter of like what is ownership comfortable spending. I mean, that's going to be the big thing is we'll see what happens with Cam, but the likelihood is that you probably have your 5'9" tax, 5'9" mid level. You don't want to trigger the hard cap. I think that's probably the one thing. So what can you're basically in the deep end with the other teams. What can $5.9 million get you in free agency? There's a lot of quality wings out there, but those guys are going to be expensive. The Hardaways, the Fourniers, Norm Powells of the world, Duncan Robinson's going to be expensive, guys like that. So everybody's looking for him. Doug McDermott's another name. He's probably $10 to $12 million, I think, that will cost. So, but yeah, that I think if there's a position of need, that's probably it. I mean, it's probably that. Can you get with Dario out, you're probably going to need some type of insurance there, right? Your first round pick from last year, if there's probably an Achilles, it's probably of what James has done. And he's done a great job. It's probably like, and we'll see where that goes. Like that's probably your glaring miss right now
The
as
big-
far as
the
based
back
on
big man?
based on kind of like who went after. I mean, like Halliburton would have been perfect. Like that would have been like, I don't think we have to talk about that right now. But
I just feel like DeAndre and Mikhail and Cam, between those three, they have to take a significant jump in order to keep the offensive firepower where it needs to be in order to get back to the finals possibly next year.
Yeah, I totally actually pulling up some free agents too. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of veterans out there, like the Ellingtons, the Garrett Temples. I think Alec Burks is probably going to be a little bit too. I mean, Alec Burks would be great. I think he'd be a little bit probably out of your reach. Malik Monk could be an interesting flyer. I don't think they're going to give him a qualifying offer.
But do you see after having acquired
agent.
Landry Shamet?
Yeah, another small guard.
Doing that.
Yeah, I mean, like,
if you like him enough.
Yeah, I mean, like the wings. I mean, I just don't see a guy in that $4 to $5 million range that just can kind of move the needle a little bit here.
Hey, Bobby, can we talk about the cap, the spending limits for a second?
Yeah.
Not everybody stays up on that, and the Suns have been a cap team for years. So when you talk about the 5.9, tell us more about what you mean.
Yeah, so every team has exceptions. Actually, I'm going to put a video up later today to kind of just talk, because the sign and trade method is kind of throwing everybody off as far as like who gets hard capped, all that whole thing. Like, so every team has some type of exceptions that you can sign a player. So if you're a team that's under the salary cap, so you're looking at teams like New York this year, possibly San Antonio, besides cap space, you have a $4.9 million room exception. That's something that Phoenix has had, I think, in the past. If you're and I have an article up, it's called The Spending Tiers of Free Agency. If you're a team that's kind of like in that in between, like you're not under the cap, but you're not really close to the luxury tax. Let's say Detroit's a good example of a team like that. Then you have two exceptions. You have your $9.5 million mid-level, and then you have a biannual exception, which is at 3.7. The biannual is you can only sign a player to a 2-year contract. If you use the biannual, you lose it for the following year. So it kind of just goes away. The mid-level, you get every year. So if you use the mid-level this year, you can use it next year. You can sign a player up to 4 years. So those were guys like Montrezl Harrell, Serge Ibaka, Crowder. Jay Crowder was signed to the mid-level exception. The tricky part is that if you use more than 5.9 of your mid-level or the biannual or acquire a player in a sign and trade, you trigger your hard cap, right? The hard cap is a threshold that you cannot exceed. So it's $143 million. It's going to be $143 million this year. So you cannot exceed it for no matter what. It's a hard, sorry, I call it a hard cap here. So that's why we kind of say like 5.9 is kind of like your number to just keep an eye on. And so, yeah, I mean, those are your type of exceptions. Teams like Brooklyn and Golden State who have blown past the luxury tax already. Like the 5.9 is already designated. Like there's no way they can use that exception. So those are the type of resources. You've got your veteran minimum exception, which were guys like Langston and Etuan, guys like that signed, a year ago here. So those are your resources to improve your team besides the trade. The sign and trade, and this was implemented a couple of years ago. The rule there is that you can. If you have a free agent on your roster, you can sign and trade him to another team and take back players that are under contract, and that doesn't trigger the hard cap. What triggers the hard cap is if the Lakers want to go out and get DeMar DeRozan and sign in and send Dennis Schroeder in a double sign and trade. Well, DeRozan's coming back in a sign and trade. You can't do that. That triggers the hard cap. You can't exceed $143 million. So those are, so those are the kind of the easy way to try to learn the technicalities of these exceptions here.
So, go ahead, Espo.
I was just going to ask in terms of Chris Paul, how much is that going to play in here? Can they get some relief by potentially structuring an extension in a way that could help them this year? Is there something that they can do to free up some additional money there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to be over the cap. Right. There's no way. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. Right. You're going to be over the salary cap, which is fine. I think for Chris, I think the big thing was, so he's at $44 million is that player option that, we'll learn in a couple of days if it's going to be extended upon. He's going to be a free agent. And I think if he's a free agent, there's already a deal to be made here. Like, it's hard to leave 44 on a table unless you have something coming back. I think the most logical thing would be is for to lower the number. So let's say maybe we lower it to 30. Okay. And we go off of that. You can go up to 4 years. Okay. We're not going to bore the people about the over 38 rule and kind of go into that whole technicality. So you can go up to 4 years, but I think you go 30, then you go up, maybe it's 3.3 next year. Maybe the following year, it's 36 and there's some partial guarantee. Maybe there's a non-guarantee on the fourth year here. And you kind of make up some of that money that he lost on the back end. And what that does is that lowers your number this year, where maybe Cam comes back. The Cam number that's set in stone because he's got early bird rights, average player salary. So you can only pay him up to $10.4 million, which I think that's kind of where his market is. So that would probably put you under the luxury tax this year. It doesn't set the time, the clock on that. So I think that's the most logical thing from both sides, is that how do we lower the number this year from 44 to 33 or 34, but maybe make it up on the back end here. But the back end is when Ayton and Bridges extension start. So you're kind of just like, you're just moving money around, right? You're not going to get hit hard now, but you might get hit hard on the back end.
So we have a couple of questions from the chat. First, from Blaze Megatron. He says, would anyone play for the Suns for cheap, or are we not that level of attractiveness for free agents?
No, I think you are. I totally are. I mean, based on, hey, you just went to the finals, right? Mm-hmm. You have basically the same roster back. I think playing for Monty is totally attractive, right? I think like guys want to play for like a coach like that. The off court, you're in warm weather. Like a lot of people like living in warm. I know I do. You're in warm weather, so there's an off court appeal to that. And guys want to win. Guys get at certain levels of their careers where they've made $150 million, and you will come for the veteran minimum exception at $2.8 million here. So yeah, I definitely think Phoenix should be a destination, just like it is for maybe the LA teams, or maybe Brooklyn, or some of those other teams. But yeah, I do think guys would come here if they're taking a little bit of a discount.
And then you mentioned big men earlier in the show, but which big man in free agency would be the best fit and make the most sense if you were going after one for the Suns?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in what the price tag for Nick Batum is. I mean, that's kind of what as far as a guy coming off your bench here, and maybe he can play some five for you. He's got non-bird rights with the Clips, meaning that they can either pay him up to like $3 million, or they can use their tax mid-level, which is that 5.9 number. He's also still getting paid by Charlotte. So he's getting like
he's doing pretty well.
$3 million, because he got that money stretched there. So I would think I'd be curious about what Batum is. I think it's an older group of fours. You're looking at the group of like the Jeff Greens, the Millsaps, that kind of guy that maybe come up. Jeff Green's an interesting name because he was really good in Brooklyn. He wasn't good in Utah, but he was really good in Brooklyn this past year. He was probably one of their better bench players. That would be a name.
Daniel Tice outside their price range?
I think he's going to – he might be a guy who goes off the board right away. I think mid-level money for him.
He's this year's Timothy Mozgov?
Yeah, I think you see like 3 years, $27 million for a guy like Tice here. I'd be careful trying to go get another center, just because I want to see what your rookie can do. I guess he's not a rookie anymore, but what Jalen can do. I mean, the centers are, Nerlens Noel. Those are your type of guys. Cody Zeller, Kem Birch, Cantor, Lopez. Guys like that. That's kind of your mixed bag of centers. If you're in that tax mid-level range here, there's a couple minimum guys out there. but yeah, that's kind of, I mean, as I said, I would be looking more for a four, some type of stretch four that can kind of give you some, with Sarge out.
There's a lot of fascination with Zeller and Noel in Suns land. You just don't feel that those are kind of the right fit. Is it money? Is it just, as you mentioned, you'd focus more on a 4 and hope Jalen Smith can play those backup 5 minutes potentially?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I probably don't want to go, too big, from a depth standpoint where you're basically having 3 bit. I'd rather go a little bit probably smaller, with that, viewpoint as far as if you can get a stretch 4, maybe get a 3, guys you said guy can come off the bench and make a shot.
In order to afford one of these guys, will the Suns apply for the disabled player exception for Dario?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think they will, and they should. The league. So what happens is the league will determine if Dario will be out. I feel like I'm Kendrick Perkins right now. I'm like repeating like I just said Sario, not Moses Moody.
Sario Dario. He's very Sario that he hurt his knee.
Yeah, they'll the league will determine if Dario will be out until basically the end of the finals of 2022. So it's like mid-June. That's like the timeline there, and if they determine that, which for an ACL, right? I mean, I think they will. It'll be 50% of his salary. So you're looking at like that 4 and change. And the rules on a DPE are you can sign a player to a 1-year contract, or you can acquire a player on a 1-year on a 1-year contract. Hard cap doesn't get triggered or anything like that. So it's another resource for you to have just in case, like, hey, it's better, it's more than the minimum, a little bit less than some of these other exceptions, but I do think they will apply for that. And probably something they probably already have the paperwork in that they've sent to the league.
Does the player have to agree on that?
Out
of curiosity?
Nope. The player doesn't have to agree on, because it doesn't impact him at all as from a salary standpoint. He's still getting his full.
He's not allowed to, but there has to be evidence that
you have to have a roster spot. I mean, that's the big thing.
Right?
Yeah, the league will have an independent doctor or doctors with probably the PA. They have to determine that he'll be out for the whole year, but it doesn't impact the player because, like, if Sarge comes back in, let's say March, great, he's back early. You're not going to be. You don't have to waive the guy you signed to that. So there's no impact there.
Here's the question. You were talking about stretch 4s. I'm kind of the mindset that I would like to see somebody back up Ayton. And the name I keep thinking about is JaVale McGee.
Yeah.
What do you think are the chances maybe the Suns will entertain an offer like that?
I think that's a great name. It's probably a guy on a veteran minimum. I mean, I think that's kind of where JaVale is, which is like 2.8 to 3.0. I think he's got value coming off your bench. I think he can give you some spot minutes, kind of a shot blocking big, knows his role at this point of his, at his point of his career. I mean, you guys like, Gorgie Jang, we'll see what his market will be. Biombo, guys who are at the, the vet minimum who have been around the league for a long time. So yeah, I think those are that's the kind of names that you'll Zeller would be interesting. I think Zeller would be interesting just because he started, I think, and he was on with Woj on the podcast, and he basically said, like, I've made, he's made some pretty decent money, probably over 70, 75 million. Like, I want to like win now. Like, my next thing is so where's the market for him? And would, if he can get 3 million from Phoenix compared to 5 million from, I don't know. I don't want to hurt people's feelings in Sacramento. What would be the
it's
difference?
okay. You're on a Suns podcast. It's all right.
Hey, the taxes are a lot higher too in California.
Yeah. Okay. I got, so it's day 1 of free agency. You're James Jones. If the Suns make a deal on day 1 of free agency, who do they sign? This is your B Nostradamus. Who do they sign? Day 1.
In-house or out of their
out of house? Yeah. Sorry.
I was gonna cheat and just say Chris. Like, I mean, shoot, that's a good question. I think you're gonna be
you're fighting the market, right?
You're sitting back. You're letting the market set. you know, like, so, cause you have guys out there who think they're going to earn more than what's out there. And I always say, like, this market is, the cap's only going to go up 3% from 109 to 112. And so we're looking at, like, there's too many guys out there who think they're going to get caps. I call it cap space money. And there's just not enough teams. There's like the Dennis Schroeders of the world, cap space money. Like, I don't see it right now unless it's a signing trade. So the first day is you really see guys come off the board for like the tax mid level on day one. Those are like day 2 and day 3 when you kind of let the market settle a little bit.
A guy, and final question for you, Bobby, before we let you get out of here, but a guy that has also fascinated a lot of Suns Nation. I hate saying that. I can't believe I just said that. Is Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah.
Is that a guy that I assume he's far out of the price range that the Suns are going to look at?
Interesting name. I think he's in the price range if Chicago they sent him a qualifying offer, I think, yesterday. They have up to the 13th to pull it without his approval. If they need cap space, they're going to pull the QO. I think they're going to go after a point guard. So then he becomes an unrestricted free agent. And I just think it's a matter of where Chris's number is. If Cam's back, I think if Cam is not back, then I think then he's probably, would he come for the mid-level on a 1-1 to maybe kind of restore his value a little bit with the, you basically kind of give him somewhat of a guarantee that you're going to play 25 minutes. He'd be great. I mean, that's the perfect fit there, but I just don't know if you don't have, I'm not sure if you have enough to kind of give him, but he's a guy who thinks he's cap space money also, but I don't see it. I mean, maybe it's a team like he goes to New York or San Antonio on a 1-year, $15 million deal. And then kind of restores his value.
Oh, Bobby, you are a guy that is always cap space money when you show up here on the program. We really appreciate it. You can follow Bobby at BobbyMarks42 on Twitter. You can get everything that he does on ESPN.com, and you can see him across the ESPN family of networks. Bobby, so happy to have you. Thank you for your insight today.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby.
Bobby Marks, always a pleasure to have on the program. And Dave, thank you for sliding into his DMs to get him here.
Once again.
Oh, hey, speaking of sliding it. So Jim Rose asked a question. Are the Suns still looking at Doug McDermott? And all I want to do is I just want to say, I don't know if, just because you hear about whispers that a media person heard, and you just hear about it today, and the media person may have just put it up today, doesn't mean the rumor happened today. I think Doug McDermott was a target potentially before Landry Shamet was acquired. But even though they're different players, obviously, McDermott's 6'8", 6'9", Landry is only 6'4", they kind of play the same role of catch and shoot. So I don't know that the Suns would acquire both guys. So if you hear any Suns rumors, that could have been at any point in the last couple of weeks, not necessarily since the Shamet trade is all I want to point out.
Well, and you got to also remember it's two sides that create rumors, right? There's the agents and there's the teams in a lot of cases. And if those sources are coming from the agents, sometimes it's to prop up a player's value going into free agency as well. So a logical guy for a spot, an agent may say, we've got interest. We've heard a little bit of potential interest from them, and that becomes a rumor as well. This is a weird dance that's going to happen over the next week, that you're going to hear names, you're going to hear things, and just take everything with a grain of salt, because there's games,
there's
being
agendas.
played.
Everyone's got an agenda. And look, I know it's Jake Fisher who reported the Suns' interest in Doug McDermott, and I don't want to do anything negative toward Jake Fisher. He's great. I know him personally. He's a good guy. He knows a lot of people in the league, and he gets a lot of intel. So this is all valid. All I was pointing out is the point in time at which it was created and existed isn't necessarily the point in time you heard it. That's all.
Let's talk about one thing that Bobby brought up that I don't know that I necessarily agree with, and I trust Bobby implicitly. Bobby knows a hell of a lot more about basketball than the three of us combined, having been around it and been in a front office. But do you agree with the assertion that they should be looking for a 3 or a 4 and not necessarily a primary backup for DeAndre Ayton, because I feel like playing small actually hurt them in those
Against
finals.
one team.
It's because they didn't have the right small.
Yeah,
I would say that. You know what I mean? I think their mix, once Saric left, I think that's when you were like, okay, we're a little effed now, because we didn't have
his own head thought we were effed the way he played.
Yeah.
He played a lot more timid.
Well, I won't say it was in his head, but he didn't play good. I will say that, yes. Yeah. But I just think that there was just no bona fide backup to Saric.
Yeah.
To replace Saric, and so if you bring in this next person, whoever it is, you might have it. Let's just say this: if Dario was playing in this series, and if we had good Dario, potentially we win this series, because we don't fall apart in certain
clutch games,
in certain stretches of the game, right? And so you're looking for somebody that can fill those minutes and do what he did. So bringing on a Nick Batum, or bringing on, I hate to say this too, but Paul Millsap, who I do not want to see.
I thought you were going to say one of the Morris brothers, and I was going to.
Marcus and I mean, absolutely bring them on. I'm kidding. I don't want to see them here.
I was going to walk out.
I literally
comment. One thing about Dario is what's interesting is, and this was an under discussed storyline, because I don't like taking charges. I don't like players. It's not a thing, but a lot of players love taking charges, except for anyone on the Suns. And Giannis led the league in offensive fouls committed the year before this, or maybe during this regular season. I'm not really sure, but Dario would have taken a charge or two from Giannis, is what I'm getting at.
Dude, after Torrey took that charge, trust me, that got into everybody's head. I promise you.
Oh yeah, where he looked like he died because Giannis just destroyed him.
Yeah.
I think they probably went, I don't really want to die.
Business decisions went way high after that, for sure.
Especially everybody was like, oh no, Torrey's basically done and he's a free agent. Think of all the money. Like, no, but look, I agree. We brought up Batum as a name. I believe it was last week, one of the last two shows we did, and it's intriguing to me as well. If you're gonna go a tweener guy, that name probably intrigues me the most of the group I've heard. I've been in on Nerlens Noel, because it gives you that, if when Ayton goes out, you get that defense, you get that rebounding from him. And there's something appealing about that, right? Because even when Dario was there, when Ayton went off the floor, the dynamics of things changed so drastically. You weren't getting the same kind of player that you were getting with DA. And I feel like Noel could be a good stand-in, right? You could put him there, and he would do the things that Ayton does for you, obviously in a limited basis and not quite as well, but he'd be able to stem that tide. And then a guy that the name has become more and more intriguing with me over the last few days, especially after listening to the Woj pod that Bobby brought up, is Cody Zeller.
Yeah.
The guy does a lot of things. Like, you look at him and you think, this is a 45-year-old stay-at-home dad when you just see the photo. Like, if you're just looking at the headshot. But then when you look at his game, he does the little things that this team needs. He gets the rebounds. He's good in pick and roll. He's solid in defense. And he's a guy that's talking about, I want to take less to be with a team that's contending. Now, it's great to say that right now. When pen comes to paper, we'll see. But that intrigues me as well. It seems like a guy that Monty Williams would really buy into as a potential backup there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. You're talking about what are your other options? You're bringing back Frank Kaminsky. That's not the option, right? I like Cody Zeller for his rebounding. Fundamentally, he's a solid player. He knows his role. He plays his role very well. So yeah, I could absolutely see him fitting in Monty's scheme. And I think he would give you a little bit more than what you were getting with Frank. And maybe as much as you were getting from Dario. Just not the perimeter shooting as much, but you're looking for somebody that's a solid backup big, not necessarily a stretch four. So I like Cody Zeller as a name. I like Nick Batum as a name. I think there's not going to be a player that we get that everybody's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe we got this dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen unless we made some blockbuster trade. Now that's my next question. And I wanted to pose that to you. If there was a scenario, let's just say there's two names that I keep thinking about, and man, I hope people don't get mad about this. But if there was a player that was available, that was a high level player, and either Jay Crowder or Mikal Bridges was a part of a scenario to get this player. Now I'm talking, obviously, if you're including Mikal Bridges, you're not talking about some mid-level exception type of player, not even a Lauri Markkanen type of a player. I'm talking about somebody that's like a bona fide third star on this team. Would you do it? And what scenarios would you see?
Do you have names in mind, Saul?
I do not.
Look, I mean,
I like DeMar DeRozan.
I wouldn't trade one of those guys for DeMar.
But I
would get mad at you.
I understand.
If you say that name again.
DeMar, I hear it, the less I like it.
Look, I think
I only brought him up so I could say that. That's all.
I think Jay Crowder, of course you did. So I think Jay Crowder is more likely than Mikal for A, you don't want to deal potential. B, if you deal Mikal Bridges, you're going to hear the Joe Johnson, they didn't want to pay this guy, which is terrifying.
This is a name that I actually think is really intriguing to me. Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
You think
he wants out he wants out of Kansas City / Toronto, or wherever the hell they were playing, Tampa Bay, whatever. Yeah. I thought it was Kansas City.
Tampa Bay, Kansas City,
he wants out. He does not like playing for Nick Nurse. That's been kind of the scuttle. And now that Nick Lowry's gone, or Kyle Lowry, god damn, man, I'm Nick Lowry. Wow. Nick Lowry from Bad Boys, baby. Look at me. Nick Lowry. So I mean, Pascal Siakam fills a lot of those little holes, right?
Yeah, having Pascal next to DeAndre. So you'd be okay. Would you trade? Let me back up. Would you trade DeAndre Ayton in a package for Pascal Siakam?
No.
Do not bring up the trade DeAndre Ayton stuff.
No, I'm gauging you guys. Let's just talk through it.
No, because what you do is you're trying to fill holes, right? Not create new ones.
Can I pump the brakes on Siakam? You guys do realize he makes $30 million this year, and it escalates from there. So how the hell do you fit him in the cap? Like you'd have to.
I don't know. The damn Warriors figure it out every fucking year. Look, I don't know.
I would look. You can fit him in You can fit him in. You're expecting to spend around $10 million. I know Bobby said 5.9, but I think the Suns are going to do something with Chris Paul's contract to get him into the full mid-level area easy. If you're expecting to spend around $10 million on a free agent, there is I think there's 150 or 175%, whatever it is, salary matching necessary. So Jay. And just for the sake of discussion, I don't want to do this, but just for the sake of discussion, Jay and DeAndre Ayton can get you Pascal Siakam. Would you do that?
No. I'd do maybe Jay and Cam, or Jay and, well, I'd consider Jay and Cam Johnson. I don't know that Toronto.
That one doesn't fit. They don't make quite enough money. You'd have to. The problem is with the Suns is that they have only got, DeAndre is their third highest paid player, and he's only at $12 million or something.
Yeah.
Can you get somebody? Now, I should know this, but could you get somebody to take? Can you get somebody to take Dario's contract, and then they can inherit?
Not with him injured.
Exception. But they can waive. They can accept an injured player, right?
Yeah, but who's going to want to do that though?
Because they get the exception.
Yeah, somebody might. I mean, shit. Oklahoma City Thunder's been taking players they don't want to play for the last 2 years. So there could potentially be somebody who would take Dario, but the problem is they don't. there's only a couple of teams out there. Is there anybody on the Thunder's roster? And the Suns would have to include a first round pick, which James doesn't care about anyway, so he might trade one.
But they can't include one
until. Is there anyone on the Thunder roster
pick
that you want for Dario?
No.
Oh, look, let's.
Do we even know who's on the Thunder roster right
now? Kemba Walker is the only guy I think.
I'm not gonna lie. I was like, no, because I don't know anybody.
Look. I love this trip to Fantasyland with Pascal Siakam.
This is free agency, man.
That's what we do. Stop pissing all over our parade, man.
I want to get back to the core of your original question. Okay. Yes, I would trade Jake Crowder for a piece that I think better helps, or a package to get somebody in that better helps. I would consider the problem with McHale again is salary. Unless you're getting another young potential guy, I'm not doing that. And so like I would have to say no on McHale, and I don't want to give up on a guy that very well could become a superstar. I don't want to relive Joe Johnson and the 7 seconds or less Suns. Mm-hmm. So the piece that I'm looking at, if you're going to make a move, is going to have to be Jay Crowder. And I think that is the one guy you look at and you go, Jay was nice to have, but is he integral to what you did? Does this team definitively change if you do not have Jay Crowder, but the piece you get back can help?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it just depends on who you're bringing in. Like, okay, and only because it's recency and in the chat, right? Lugenstort, right? You bring it if you were to trade somebody and get like a Lugenstort, right? Now, I would never do that, but if you brought in somebody like that physically and defensively, absolutely matches up with what you've been doing. He brings that intensity, stuff like that. But offensively, you miss those peaks.
Let's stay on Fantasyland. Let's say the Thunder do want to trade Lou Dort because the guy went undrafted 2 years ago, but now all of a sudden he wants to play for a winner. Let's just say he's forcing his way out. Would you trade, because financially it's about an even swap with Cam Johnson?
No.
Would you trade Cam Johnson for Lou Dort?
No. Offensively, Cam Johnson is got way higher upside, and defensively he can hold his own enough. So what you're getting offensively from Lou Dort is far worse than what you're going to get defensively from Cam Johnson. So
Lou Dort actually scored almost 40 in one game this past spring.
One game. Give me I'm going to get roasted.
And Al Bundy had 4 touchdowns against Polk High, or he played for Polk High.
He played for Polk High. Yeah. Get it right, man.
My bad.
Number 33.
Oh, what about Pokashevsky?
Anyways, look, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get killed. I think Cam Johnson has as much upside as Mikal Bridges.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
No.
I agree.
No. God,
I agree.
Guys.
I agree.
You guys are way down on Mikal Bridges then.
No, I think
no.
But listen, Mikal has played better so far in his career. I agree. I just think what I've seen from Cam Johnson and what he can do, I think he has just as much upside as Mikal Bridges. I don't think that is necessarily crazy to say.
It's crazy to say.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Dave, what in the NBA Finals, if you didn't know anything about their entire history, if you just watched the NBA Finals, would you still be saying that Mikal Bridges is the better player?
Cam Johnson had a better Finals. Yes, Cam Johnson had a more visual impact in the NBA Finals for sure. But I think Mikal has the potential to be an all-defense team like 5 times in his career. Cam Johnson does not. Neither is going to set the world on fire offensively. They're both going to be mostly 3-point shooters who can sometimes score off the bounce. Mikal has more capacity for that. I think Mikal's going to end up being 18-point Tayshaun Prince type, 18 points a game, all defense, and a guy that every contender would love to have, and no one else is going to get besides the Suns.
I think Cam has more dog in him. I'm not saying trade him. I'm just saying. No,
I know.
I want them both on the roster.
I think Mikal has the higher ceiling for sure. Cam is he's just got that face everyone loves. I mean, so Cam's got the look that everyone falls in love with.
I think Cam
Did
has
you guys
more
see him post
dog
his
in him.
baby picture? He looks exactly the same as his baby picture.
Same hair. It was crazy.
Same smile, everything.
Look,
Same hair.
I just think
let's ask
Cam has more dog in him.
Let's ask the
I like
chat.
that.
Who has the most potential, Cam Johnson or Mikal Bridges?
Look, I've already seen Nicholas Tan and Herbie agree with me. These guys are geniuses in the chat, and they should be promoted to Dave's
You've
spot.
never
on the show.
agreed with either of them before. No, I'm kidding. Those guys are great.
Look, I look at it, and the reason I bring that up is I think Cam could fill a lot of what Jay gives you if you trade Jay. I feel like he can be that dog. He's not going to be as good defensively.
I think that's a really good
but
comp. I think that's a really good comp. Cam has a higher ceiling than Jay. I just don't think it's as high as Mikal. Mikal's higher than all of them.
And that's fair. I think that it's fair for you to have that opinion. I look at Cam and I'm extremely excited with what he can do. I think he could, if you did trade Jay, he could fill a lot of that Jay did. I look at him and I go, he has Dan Marley potential to me.
Who, Cam?
Cam. He's a guy that has some of that grit, can hit that three.
Early career Dan Marley. We'll see if he keeps going. Yeah.
Yes, early career. I'm not projecting. Right. He's not going to necessarily be the third best guy on a title contender necessarily. I'm
Dan
just saying right now.
Dan Marley didn't yak on dudes like Cam has already in his career.
Oh, yes, he did. Early in his career. That's why he was named
Marley
Thunder.
Was a dunker.
That was why he was named Thunder. He slammed on people early in his career.
He would have been lightning if he'd have just been a shooter.
He slammed on people or he just slammed?
No, he slammed on people too.
I mean, he didn't have the look.
He didn't dunk on people like PJ.
Cam Johnson
has got dunked on.
Yeah. Okay. Cam Johnson has the best individual dunk, but Dan Marley was much more physical in-game dunker than Cam Johnson's ever been. I mean, I can count on one hand how many good dunks Cam Johnson's had in the NBA.
2.
Hold on. You guys are making me do this crap on air.
Go find it.
I got it right here. Give me 2 seconds. This is an iconic thing that I'm going to show. I'm going to school Saul book.
There you go.
Live on the program.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe I have completely forgot about Thunder Dan's ups.
I'm going to.
I know that's why they call him Thunder Dan, but all I keep thinking about is just his his one-handed.
Can you? Here, you hear?
Okay.
Can you get me here?
Right, get Manute Bull.
All right, watch. He got Manute Bull right here.
Okay, yeah, all right. You got one.
Boom, on Manute Bull.
Okay.
There you go.
That's one. Cool.
Yeah. What?
That's
Give me more than one that Cam has.
He has 2.
Actually, Cam's got one on 8.
And he dunked on JaVale McGee.
All right. I could keep
searching,
on a few people. But I don't think that would be real great for the audio listeners. By the way, to the audio listeners, that was a clip of Dan Marley posterizing Manute Bull. Yes, 7'7" Manute Bull. But Saul doesn't think that Dan Marley could dunk on people. So, Espo dunking on Saul. All right.
Espo
so anyway,
dunking on Saul. Oh, now let's pull up the Espo dunking on the 7-foot rim.
Saul would have to be laying on the ground, like flat on his back, for me to dunk on him. Actually, so look,
we're going to the 8-foot hoops. Let's go.
We totally just took a very bizarre turn.
So one thing James Jones said the other day that was interesting is he said they're leaning in, paraphrasing here, but they're leaning into continuity. I don't think the Suns are going to consider trading either of Mikal or DeAndre Ayton, and certainly not Devin Booker or Paul. They're going for those top 4 being, coming back next year, being part of another finals run. They're counting on Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges to continue to improve. Whether anybody else in there is like considered untouchable in a big trade. I mean, James Jones has made some unexpectedly big trades in his career. Let's be honest with that. It could happen. It could happen that the Suns could trade Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder. They only have so many guys under contract anymore. There's certainly Jalen Smith, I would expect, is available. He makes $4.4 million, guys. He's like one of the higher paid guys on the team. So it's possible. I think what's your over? What? Raise your hand or tell me if you guys think the Suns will make a trade in the next few days.
Man, I want to say
of a key person that played in the finals.
I want to say no, but I don't know, man. James Jones, I'm not going to put anything past him. We don't know what. That's the thing is like the unknown is what goes on behind the scenes. How these guys are. If they think that there's a better fit out there that James Jones wants to pull the trigger on. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, but I would say I'm leaning like 90% no.
The only way that some major trade happens is if the old Robert Sarver rears his head and says he's not going to pay one of these guys on an extension.
No, I'm saying but below Mikal and DA.
Okay.
Do you think there's an important finals rotation player that gets traded this week below the top 4?
I highly doubt it. I think the Suns off season is very much going to be like a season of Saturday Night Live. You're going to add around the fringes, but you don't add a star. You hope your internal group gets better, and you bring in people that help with that. I do not see.
I haven't watched
any major
in 20 years. What are we talking here?
You still get the premise. It's all the same crap. They don't bring in, hey, we added cast member Jamie Foxx after superstar Jamie Foxx to the cast. They add in a lot of lesser name people as new cast members. That's what I think the Suns are going to do. They're going to add around the fringes, a Landry Shamet here, maybe a Cody Zeller there, and then hope that Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton, they grow, that they take the steps that you need to see that growth to return back to the finals, even in a tougher Western Conference.
Dude, going to the finals is the best thing that could have ever happened. That's the stupidest comment of the year. Obviously, obviously that's
Captain Obvious.
I see. Okay, Captain Obvious.
You know.
But what I'm going to say is, like, physically, Mikal Bridges, I think, understands like he's got to get stronger and he's got to get a little bit bigger. Because there were certain times like Middleton took his lunch. And he was a little bit more physical than Mikal and was able to get separation from Mikal from time to time. And I think Mikal learned a lot from that. DA, I think as we start next year, I would be shocked and also pissed if the Suns didn't make a concerted effort to start developing DeAndre Ayton on the offensive side of the ball more than just lobs and dunks. Because if you don't get that to happen, you're risking the future runs that this team is going to need to make, to go back to the NBA finals. You need DA to be able to hit a 14-foot jump shot on a consistent basis. You need DA to be able to show some type of offensive repertoire outside of just right by the rim dunks and layups. Like, you need more from DA offensively. I think his growth defensively was fantastic, especially once we got to the playoffs. I would love if we see that same growth offensively. Dude, you're talking about somebody that could go to the All-Star game. Like, easily. So
the weight room needs to be the offseason MVP for the Suns.
Yes.
And the chat's talking about it too. Yeah. You got a lot of guys that they need to bulk up, right? The younger guys.
James Jones said the other night that the team just needs to get stronger and more mature. And he was talking a little bit about bringing in guys who are physically a little bit stronger. He was literally using Landry Shamet as an example of bigger than the backup guards that were on the team last year, besides Abdul Nader, I think. And one of the reasons Monty played Abdul Nader ahead of Moore and Galloway and Carter was because of size. Landry is only 6'4", 6'5", and he's not big, but he's bigger. So James is just looking for a little bit of upgrade on size, and I think he's talking about his own players getting bigger, as well as anyone he brings in being a little bit bigger than last year's guys. I do expect they'll get a backup center. I mean, if this week is, I hadn't even thought about Nick Batum, but if this week is Nick Batum and JaVale McGee, that's a pretty good week, right?
Oh, I would love that. I think that's a home run if you get those two in the fold for 2022 for sure.
I love Bobby Marks and I hate Bobby Marks because Bobby got me thinking about Lauri Markkanen again. And damn you, Bobby Marks!
Lauri Markkanen.
I have some fascinating. Look, I get it. He's not going to be. It's not going to. It's this pipe dream that somehow that he would become one of those missing pieces, and they'd get him on a team favorable deal. It's not going to happen, and it's a nutty thought. And I had gotten past it, and then Bobby was like, "Well, and then something."
That's like an ex-girlfriend. You got past her. Then somebody says She asked about you yesterday.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden you're back in the fold.
Yep. I got the feels for Lori again, and it ain't good. It ain't good. Yeah. So, but no, if that was the week, Batum and McGee, I'd be down for that. Now, I don't expect McGee to sign next week since he's kind of busy in Japan, but maybe he will. But
that's true. It wouldn't be next week. It would be later in the summer.
But I could feel that. But hey, Dave, I know we're a little late in the show, but you got anything for us?
Ooh, Dave, stat me.
We just got a request in the chat for a cap me instead of a stat me. I think Bobby glossed over it a little bit, but I want to point out that with Chris Paul's current salary, the Suns are only $8.5 million under the luxury tax. And he was talking about this hard cap thing. That's only about $6 million over that. If the Suns sign too many players and if they bring back campaign for 10, 8, a year, they're going to be really tight on the cap. But I do think all you got to do is read the tea leaves that are being laid out for us and know that Chris Paul is going to sign for somewhere around 30 to 35 on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or somewhere close to that. And then that gives the Suns another $10 million to spend. I fully expect the Suns will spend their entire MLE, which is around $9.5–10 million, on top of making a good offer to bring campaign back, which is separate from that. So, but there are limitations. After that, you've got maybe the Dario exception if he does the disabled. I like that idea, the disabled player exception, if he doesn't have to agree to it or have to sit out the year. And I like the the biannual exception as well, which is around $3 million. You're going to get a good backup center that way. I do agree that the Suns probably want to see if Jalen Smith can handle the backup, some backup minutes, so they don't want to go too big on a backup big man. I like the Nick Batum part, but anyway, Suns will probably spend around $20 million in new money for campaign or a replacement for him and a big man.
Let me ask this, and forgive me if this is a dumb question. It probably is, but doesn't the order in which they sign guys impact how it plays with the cap as well? So we may hear of a deal that is official, but isn't official for a week or two as they stack these things on top of each other. Correct?
Yeah, campaign would be the last to sign, like it's been in prior years. Anytime you re-sign your own players, you do it last, if it's for more money than they made last year. Now with Chris Paul, they're going to want him to sign first to free up the space, but they'll probably have campaign, if he comes back, sign last because his are bird rights monies, and you'd rather use your MLE first. And so you're right, absolutely.
One thing I don't think people realized with that draft trade is Shamet and Javon Carter basically were a straight flop, right, in terms of salaries. And then you don't have to have the hold for the rookie anymore. So you don't have that money. So that's money you can play with in free agency as well, which is part of why.
That's true. So actually, you're right. Absolutely right. Now they're around, you're absolutely right, $10.6 million without dropping CP's salary at all. You're right.
Yeah, which is a big reason why they made that move. Not only do they get better in terms of a rotation, but they also free up some cash. Right before we get out of here, let's talk about the trade. We didn't really talk about our thoughts on Landry Shamet. We got a little bit from Bobby, but what were your thoughts on adding Landry Shamet to the roster, saying goodbye to Javon Carter? Saul, why don't we start?
Well, I mean, I like Javon, but as evidenced in the playoffs, he didn't have a role. And when you shorten up that rotation, that's when you see who the coaches really trust versus who they don't. And for whatever reason, they did not trust Javon Carter. I thought that there was points in certain series where he could have given you some minutes and maybe even a spark. Game 3 in the finals comes to mind when things were just kind of just not going their way. I thought maybe you should throw out Javon Carter and just see what you can get, because that was one of those games where you needed a spark, you needed something, and I thought he could have been a pest. Like he's proven to be. But I like Landry Shamet coming in, giving you far more offensive firepower. He's kind of a little bit of a pest out there. Not the greatest defensive player in the world, but he gives you enough of what you need to get to the next point, which is bringing back the stars off the bench. And so I don't expect him to have a tremendously big role. I would say something like 10 to 15 minutes a game, maybe, if things fall right. And then, you move on. And you just understand it's basically a 1-for-1 swap outside of the draft pick. And you're getting a little bit more from the perimeter from somebody like Landry.
Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the same thing. People were asking, does that mean we don't bring Galloway back or Etwan back? I mean, probably those guys won't come back of their own accord because they're going to want to go to a team with a little bit more likelihood of getting minutes. With Landry Shamet on the team, it's definitely he's the fourth guard, assuming Campaign comes back. And those guys, none of those guys, Etwan or Langston, is going to take minutes from whoever even the Suns replace Campaign with if Campaign doesn't come back. But I'm pretty sure he would. So it's really mostly a matter of do the Phoenix Suns want to bring back Etwan or Langston, or do they want to come back on a team that they almost certainly won't play for, which is a pretty small chance. But anyway, back to your question on what's Landry Shamet's impact on the team. I think he's definitely the fourth guard. He does play in the playoffs. He's been in the playoffs all 3 years of his career. Although his role in the playoffs has been smaller than his role in the regular season. So he's probably more of a guy who consistently gets your regular season minutes and then has his minutes shrunk in the playoffs because of his defensive shortcomings.
Yeah, Dave, I spoke to a former NBA executive who kind of gave me the same readout on that as well, is that this is a guy that will give you solid rotational minutes during the regular season and likely will shrink away in the playoffs unless he improves in certain aspects of his game. So not unlike what we saw with Javon Carter, but what I like about Shamet is he's a true backup shooting guard, I think, in terms of being able to come in, give you some points, from deep, spread that offense in that second unit, especially if you are planning on bringing Campaign back. He seems like the kind of guy that when Campaign cuts down that lane, you're going to be able to kick it to him and get quality threes. He shot almost 40% from three overall, 45% from three from the corners. So that's what fascinates me a lot about him. I think it's a great ad, and they do save that money going to free agency on a draft pick that wasn't going to play any minutes. And without a G League team, what the hell's the point, right? You don't have a G League team that you control, so you're not stacking young talent to go try to find a gem like that.
Can I correct a misnomer here? The G League's always there. You can assign anyone you want to the G League. Tyshawn Alexander can still be on the team as a two-way. Mostly playing with the G League. It's not a big deal that you don't own your own G League team. It's just they won't play the same style, and you can't guarantee them minutes. Jalen Smith got assigned to the G League this past year, and a upside is he can be assigned to the G League. The downside is you can't control the minutes, and he didn't get many when he did go down there. That's why they brought him back just to sit the bench.
Well, yeah, that's the thing to me is if you don't have your own team, you can't install what your plan is for that guy. You can't go, I want him to go down there, play this number of minutes, do these kind of things within our system. You're leaving it up to chance for somebody else to hopefully give them some. I'm sure you have some say, but it's not like when you control. So that's why I don't think it was a big loss that you don't have the 29th pick. In the chat, I've seen the mention of Bull Bowl and Taco Fall. I want both only because we can
just because you
Taco
showed that clip. It's the only reason those guys' names came up.
But during the draft, I wanted both of those guys picked by the Suns so we could have a Taco Bowl Tuesday.
Bowl.
Just for really dumb name things. I just saw that in the chat. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? Any predictions in what we will see as free agency begins? Well, the legal tampering period begins August 2nd. That's like, hey, I'm gonna go flirt with your girlfriend. I have 4 days to go flirt with your girlfriend during the legal tampering period. But Saul,
what is this flirt with your girlfriend? Why quotes? Like, isn't that just what you're gonna do?
Legal tampering is the quote, not the
flirt with your girlfriend.
I didn't stop when I
really flirt.
Espo's on a roll today.
Hey, you guys got to just get your heads out of the gutter. All right, Dave, why don't you start with final thoughts and any predictions you have for the opening of free agency?
I feel like day 1 or 2 of free agency is simply going to be about Chris Paul and Campaign. That's it. Nothing special. The Suns are going to want to get deals. So they're going to have like 4 or 5, good deals, value picks. So they're going to have 4 or 5 players that they would like to sign, and they'll wait to get the lowest price on those players, whichever doesn't sign right away. So I agree with Bobby. Daniel Tice probably goes off the board on day one. He's this year's Timothy Mozgov, probably something like that, where you're like, what? How did he get that much money? And then they'll just wait to see who's still sitting there looking for a partner at the end of the week. And that's when we'll start seeing the Suns make moves.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be pretty quiet outside of Chris Paul. It's like Bobby said, you're just kind of waiting for the market to settle itself. And that's the great thing about NBA free agency versus like college athletes thinking that they're ready to go pro when they're clearly not ready to go because they're getting bad information. The market will correct itself. And it will say like, no, you're not worth this much because nobody thinks you're worth this much. And so, there's players out there that think they're going to get, a lot of money and they're not. And so you're hoping that one of those, diamonds maybe falls down to you and you make a deal for them to come here on a 1-year deal and help the Suns thrive and get back to the finals.
I think you guys are right in Chris Paul and oh my gosh, wow. My brain just locked up there. Chris Paul and Campaign will be the that part won't make the audio. I'll cut it out. But Campaign and Chris Paul are the guys that get taken care of first. But I do think something surprising, not a trade necessarily, but something surprising comes in the first few days of that legal tampering period where you go, wow, the Suns got that guy and on a team favorable deal, because that's how desirable playing for Monty is and what they showed by going to the finals last year.
You're pushing all your chips into the Larry Markkinen table, aren't you?
No. Oh God.
I actually think
I would be saying the Suns got that guy for a different reason than you would.
I actually think it'll probably be like a Nerlens Noel. I feel like that's the guy that you'll go, oh wow, they got him for that. I like that. Just a solid move to make it clear that
I'm not as high on Nerlens Noel as you guys are.
Maybe a Zeller as well. So
where at least Espo is, I should say.
Yeah, I think I think there's a higher chance of a trade of a guy. Again, what I was saying before, not including DA or McHale or Booker or anybody like that. But I think there's going to be a trade. I don't think the Suns bring back the entire top 6 or 7 that played in the finals.
Interesting.
Oh, there we
go. Have that to look forward to. Eric in the chat.
That's not sourced at all.
that is an opinion, a guess.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. But Eric in the chat says he believes that Chris Paul will film at least one State Farm commercial between now and the next time we record. I think that is a safe bet.
Will Devin Booker join Chris Paul in a State Farm commercial?
Yeah, he will be the guy to Jake. He'll be the fake Jake in one of these commercials like Drake was. There you go. There's some rhyming for you on a Saturday morning. Drop me a beat. We'll go a little freestyle at the end of a Sun solar panel. So that is the end of the program.
Zenith Phoenix just mentioned that would be a hell of a pickup if they could get Larry
agree.
Nance Jr.
Larry Nance Jr. is a guy that I think would be fantastic if you could bring him in. I believe he's at around 11 million, if I'm correct. I may not be remembering it. And since we're at the end of the show, I'm not going to look that crap up. So this is the end of the program. As always, you can follow Dave King at Dave King NBA. The NBA is there because instead of giving you sourced information, he's going to go, yeah, I think they might make a trade. So, and you can follow the Carmel Thunder from Down Under, Saul Bookman at Saul_Bookman. The underscore is there because Saul wants to get that secure that bag during this free agency period. And then you can follow at Espo for me if you really want to. The show's at Sun Solar Panel.
Way to sell it.
Look at that. If you want to, you can. I don't care. And you can follow the show at Sun Solar Panel. Until next time, ahoy hoy.
Barkley, 20-footer, yes, for the tie. Scorer, turnaround shot in the air. It's good. Flash, What? Finds the Barkley puts it up. There's a count. It does. Shake